It is like somebody's taken the blinders off you. This Rapid Cash program is something more than just you show up on a couple of days over a weekend. This program is good even for people who are just starting out, people who just want to take advantage of some opportunities that have come up other than long-term buy and hold. Strategies that we're going to talk about, it's applicable in all markets all across the country. We'll be surrounded by like-minded people. It's an incredibly supportive community. When we say Rapid Cash, we mean get money not in years and years, but in potentially months. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to get started. Hi, everybody. Barry McGuire here for Barry McGuire's Creative Real Estate Education. It's the Monday main event, and that little clip that you just saw is, yes, indeed, we are having our first Rapid Cash event in 3 long years. That's this weekend coming up. It's May 7th and 8th in Calgary. Might be a couple of spots left. Talk to Donna if you're interested. Today, though, we're going to have some of our focus team leaders on, people who are going to be appearing at the Rapid Cash event next weekend. Folks who invest in real estate themselves and who know what they're doing and have been around the track. And we're going to talk to them about what they see in this changing marketplace. What are they observing? And what kind of deals they're doing themselves, because it's always interesting to hear what folks who know what they're doing, theoretically, are actually doing. And then this is a Q&A session. Any questions that you've got or accumulated, this is a good time to have 5 or 6 focus team leaders answer those questions. So we're going to bring folks on. I'll give them a quick intro, and then we're going to dive right into it. So we've got today Dean Manti. Dean is a longtime investor. You're going to be very interested to hear what he has to say about at the Rapid Cash event. You're going to be very interested to hear what he has to say about marketing. Dean's got some interesting takes on that. Andrea Workington. What can I say about Andrea? She invests in so many things over so many provinces with so many people, with so many tickets next to her name, and has done so many deals that it's just difficult to count. So I think that should give you a little bit about what Andrea is all about. Sean Impey has been an investor for a long time, and he is now an ace mortgage broker, helps lots of you folks with all kinds of deals, creative and otherwise. And Neil Taniguchi is going to be joining us a bit later. He and Dean are good buds, know each other well. And the redoubtable Wayne Hillier is running the show for us in the background. Wayne and Gabby have taken to real estate just like, I don't know, fits them like a glove. They got more stuff going on than almost Andrea, maybe not quite. So that's our crew for today. And so, Dean, let's start with you. This is your first time on a Monday main event. What do you see in this changing marketplace? How is it different than, I don't know, a year ago? And what do you see that's different and interesting?
Essentially, it's now a seller's market. So certainly getting less leads than I would have been getting this time last year, just because, the newspapers and the radio and everything is telling people how hot the market is. And so, essentially people know they can throw their house up and, sell it pretty quick. Now, that doesn't mean there's not opportunity, because there's opportunity in every market. So you just have to capitalize on fewer leads, and, way you go. I took possession of one today that I signed while we were in this market. And then I take possession of another one with a joint venture partner at the end of this month as well. Also, like, same deal. It was the place smelled of cannabis and smoke and whatever, but it didn't matter because we're doing a full gut reno on it anyway. So away we go. So there's opportunity in every market, really. But I'll tell you, it's quite nice selling in this market. I'll tell you that. I've sold a few of my places recently, and that's fun, having multiple offers.
That is fun. Yeah, there's certainly a huge amount of activity in the marketplace, but I think your key point there is well taken. That there are opportunities in every market. Might not be as many, but there are always opportunities for sure. Wayne, what about you? You and Gabby have got lots going on. You've pivoted and you're doing more of one strategy than you used to. So tell us what you've seen that puts you on your current use of strategies.
Yeah, we've decided to start doing a lot more flips. Put a lot of energy into that. It was something that we kind of shied away from in the beginning of our career. A lot of people were saying it's not a good time for it, but it's always something we've been really interested in and fascinated by. And so, we're developing a new branch of our business that kind of is automated for flips, and we want to get it up and running, doing lots of deals every year. So it's just another income stream for us. It's very exciting.
Right. Now, folks, now the nugget out of that is the word automated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So firstly, Wayne is doing more fix and flips than he ever has done. He did lots of other of the RTOs and the AFSs and some assignments, and now he's doing fix and flip. So when you learn how to what these strategies are all about, then you recognize the opportunities in the different markets. And on the automated side of things, what Wayne means is he's looking to not have to treat every fix and flip as a custom deal. You have contractors who have specific instructions and a checklist to go by. You have the kinds of improvements that you like to do, like the kind of carpet and the paint, and you don't have to make those choices all the time, which really make the acquisition and the fixing and the amount of time that it takes and the money that it costs to do that a lot less, for sure. And Wayne will expand on that when we get to Rapid Cash Weekend. Now, Sean, what about you? You're busy as a beaver as a mortgage broker. Do you have any time at all to do any investing on your own? And if you don't, what are you seeing in the marketplace as a guy who's connected?
Well, I'm busier than heck, as you said. I did most of my investing probably from 20 years ago up to about 5 years ago. And then I got 62 doors. So that's lots. So
that's lots.
Not really in the market. Divested one or two properties, refinanced some properties. One thing I'm finding out is that people who are refinancing, they can almost make up any number of what their property is worth, and we can find an appraisal that's going to give them, an extra $100,000 in their pockets. They can go buy that rental property that they got their eye on. So,
isn't that
it's really been beneficial to anybody who's refining their property? So, or even 6 months after they buy it, if they want to refi and did a bit of improvements, put a basement legal suite in or something like that, they can get a lot of their money back on their BRRRR strategy, stuff like that. So
that is hugely interesting because we've talked before in this space about the difficulty of being able to finance for what the property is worth today, because appraisals are backward looking. So, that's great that you have, or appraisers are flexible enough to be able to look and see what maybe it's not exactly today's values, but if they can see last week or 2 weeks ago values, then refinancing should be fun.
Yeah, current values are there, and I always tell my clients, and Andrea's been involved in a couple of the files here lately that we're talking about there in Red Deer area, and I always ask, what's the most optimistic price if you were to sell that? What do you think you might get in a perfect world? And then we add 25 or 30,000 on top of that again, and send it out to the appraiser. And it's in my business. The appraisers on a refinance is a big part of it, and I tell people sometimes that there's certain lenders that will let me pick the appraiser. So that's awful. Oftentimes, can't get it out of my mouth here. Oftentimes that's an advantage where you can make your argument with the appraiser about how much it should be worth, get the realtor to find you some, some really good comps that support it, and you might get $30,000 or $40,000 more money out of it because you get a good appraisal. And the lender that we get to pick the appraisers for may not be the rock bottom, lowest interest rate, but what would you sooner have, $40,000 or 0.1 or 0.2 cheaper interest rate? So
That is,
we always talk about the best mortgage, not the cheapest mortgage or lowest interest rate mortgage. So
yeah, that's good coaching to remember that, folks. The best mortgage, not the cheapest rate mortgage. And Andrea, what's burning up the track in the Red Deer area for you as a realtor? And then you can switch hats and talk about you as an investor.
Yeah, so seeing lots of multifamily people come in to buy what's here in Red Deer. And so people are looking at apartment buildings with a cap rate of kind of 5.5% to 6.5% for those multifamily people. And for me, investing wise, I'm actually selling a few of my single family doors so that I can redeploy those funds into multifamily.
Yes, I mean, I guess as Dean said, it's kind of fun selling those properties and finding that holding on, and you've got some equity appreciation, and fun selling, especially when you're, I'm sure you take even though you're in the business and you understand what's going on. I mean, you probably try to not get too overly enthusiastic about your own deals, but then if it turns out, man, that is so nice.
We're not really in the massive multiple offers market like Calgary area is, but if stuff is priced well, it might sell $5,000 over list.
Well, that's a start. I mean, Red Deer has always been more of the steady Eddie, location, hasn't it? I mean, when Edmonton and Calgary can be going nuts, and Red Deer chugs along and does well, and it's steady.
Yes.
Steadier. So yeah. All right. So does anybody have? So Andrew, you're looking to maybe to deploy cash into multis. Wayne's on to fix and flips. Sean is shepherding his 62 doors through. Sean, that's good. You don't have to buy any more doors. You're good. I think. Do we agree? I think we're going to let Sean off the hook on more acquisitions here. I think he's good. He's good. So Dean, now back to you. So you're buying and selling. So the properties you sold, had they increased a lot in value and they didn't quite fit your portfolio? How did you decide what to prune?
So one of them was actually an AFS that I had gotten back in November of 2019. And so the situation there was, it was a lady that had become an accidental landlord. And she had put a second mortgage on by Service Credit Union, and that second mortgage was like double-digit interest rate, and it basically was just an alligator for her. And so we ended up coming to terms. I can't remember exactly. I think I put $20,000 to pay out the loan and give her a little bit of cash to walk, and she gave me a 5-year AFS. And at the time, I had some built-in equity as it was, but I was hoping, if I could get 305. I'd be happy camper. And last month, I would say last month, no, sorry, month before, one of the neighboring units sold for $341.
Woohoo!
So I said, well, as opposed to, going another couple of years and then, either, refinancing or whatever it is, I'm making more than I thought I would have made. So I put it up. It sold in 3 days for full price. And that closes this month. And then the other one was another AFS, actually, that Barry, you represented the seller on. I've got that one under contract, and that one, we should have conditions waived here by end of the week. And that'll close here in end of June.
So now let me see. November of 2019 is when you bought that first one. And I think you were at our Rapid Cash event. That would be in May of 2019?
Correct,
anyway,
yes.
Good call. Good call. Take a course, buy a property. Now,
I was
folks,
just saying, sorry, Barry, I'll plug
Yeah.
you real quick. I was just saying to another investor that I went to your course. I honestly don't recall what I paid for it. I want to say it was like $1,500 because it was just the AFS exclusive. And that course has made me hundreds of thousands of dollars as of right now.
Donna, get that on tape. We're putting
We
this.
have it.
That that's a great clip. I was saying to Donna yesterday, we were a little slack about getting testimonials from people who have taken the course and who they say what they say and they've done well. It's it's great to hear that. So we'll be having a private conversation with you about that, Dean. We'll get in the studio and we'll work on it. That'll be the gem. No, that's exactly it. Just a little bit of education is wonderful. Anybody listening, you make your money back. If you take the Rapid Cash course, you make your money back doing your first deal. So hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's great. That's great.
Guess who's buying me bubbly on Saturday night?
Guess who's buying Donna bubbly? Yeah. Yes.
Done.
Done. Did I see Taniguchi sneak in here somewhere? Neil, are you there? Yeah.
Taniguchi's hanging out here. Yeah, he's sneaking around.
There he is. Neil, we kind of went around the table to start with just to say, what are you seeing in the marketplace in which you operate? How is it different than 6 months ago or a year ago? And, that's a general observation on the marketplace. And then, personally, what are you doing for you and Linda's portfolio?
Well, those are great questions. I've had conversations. I'd say first and foremost, we're in Airdrie, just north of Calgary. Most of our rent-to-own properties are all in the Airdrie area. We do our fix and flip in Calgary. And in chatting with realtors, what I'm hearing is since Easter, if the foot was through the floor, if the amp was turned to 11, it might be dialed back to 10 or 9.5 right now. That there's actually a little bit of breathing room, and the whole reviewing offers and getting we sold a property in February for like $75,000 over list, and we listed it for $75,000 higher than we thought we would ever list it for last fall. So that's how crazy the market went for the first quarter of the year. So just that little bit of letting off on the gas, but stuff is still turning. I think the days of reaching and listing a property super high and getting it, it might still be there, but it's not as guaranteed. So you want to try, and if you're going to sell a property, in my head from listening to the realtors we deal with, is you want to list it about right, possibly even underlist it, which I know for all of us is a little bit hard to do because you want to get the money, but you want to generate that frenzy. The feeding frenzy and the multiple offers is where the price overages seem to come from. So if I bring that back into where we are, we literally inked, it was verbal and it went, we put it on paper this morning, a property for our next flip. And so one of the things I think you're saying what's different in the market today is if you're looking for, I don't think it matters what the class of property is other than maybe an apartment style condo in the Calgary market. If you're looking for a buy and hold rental, whether it's a single family or a duplex or a townhouse or a fix and flip property, I think the days of going, well, why don't we wait and go see it on the weekend? This property got listed on Thursday or Friday. We were aware of it. It was on our radar, and they were going to try and review offers last night. And so we did it via video tour because my contractor couldn't get there, and I was tied up with some family stuff. And we made the offer and got it last night. Did not have to pay over list. And we'll review some condo docs in the next week. We'll close it on May 23rd, and away we go. And we took possession of one last Friday, which is our flip besides that. This one that we just did, it's a townhouse flip. And so that'll be a quick in and out one. The other one is a little more involved one. And apparently it's too expensive to lift the house off the foundation based on where it's located in Calgary. So we'll cut it off at the floor joists, leave the floors, and we're going to add a whole lot of square footage and bump up the second floor. So the good news is that there are still some opportunities out there. But I think the days of being able to go, we'll wait and see. If it's priced in the market, you need to be ready to go.
Gotcha. So that's also good coaching for folks in the Calgary market. Wayne, what do you think the Edmonton market is like compared to how Neil has seen it in Airdrie and Calgary?
You know what? I think we're a few months behind Calgary always. We haven't quite hit as crazy as it was, early 2022, like it was in Calgary. But I mean, a minimum 4 or 5 offers on every property that I've been looking at. I've been losing a lot of offers, and I'm going $10,000 to $20,000 over asking on MLS. So it's I see the magic number seems to be $20,000 right now over asking price. But just recently I saw one. Was it $65,000 over asking? And that was a foreclosure. So it's pretty crazy. It's exciting as well, though. There was a question here just a second ago. I popped it up. Someone asked, "Is there still good news for buyers? Are buyers still finding deals that work numbers wise?" It's hard. You're gonna need to really rely on your off-market deals, I think. Moving forward, if it continues as it is right now, like it is, I would start really relying on your wholesalers in your market. And that's just another one of the cool strategies that you guys teach at Rapid Cash. So in my opinion, I think there's a really cool opportunity for wholesalers to get back in as well. I think a lot of people were struggling for a while there, finding deals. There's still a lot of people that are looking to sell right now, but don't want to put it on MLS, right? And those are typically the properties that we're looking for, the ones that stink, the ones that have stains, those types of things. So I think there's a huge opportunity for a lot of wholesalers are struggling right now. They're like, oh no, everybody's putting it on MLS. Well, you're looking at the wrong properties. What you need to be doing is targeting your marketing towards the types of properties where people don't want to put it on MLS, but also still want to sell.
That's a really good point, Wayne, because when folks who don't understand how the market works and how people think are in a market like this, you're going, well, why would there be any reasonably priced properties? Sellers can sell whatever they got. So how can you find any kind of a deal? So that's something that we do chat about at the Rapid Cash program is seller motivation and why sellers do things. We got a bunch of examples of why you can still find properties when you think you can't, which is ultra important. As Dean says,
I'll tag into what Wayne was talking about, that looking in places where we're not normally, where a lot of people don't normally look, is I belong to a couple of different landlord groups on Facebook, and there's a particularly active one where I'm seeing a lot of landlords who are what we call accidental landlords. They got stuck when the market dropped locally and they couldn't sell. They would have had to come out of pocket. They were underwater, so they decided to rent. And as these properties are now regaining in value and refloating, as we call it, they're looking to get out. But a lot of them have that compassion where they're saying, if you're looking to add to your portfolio, we would love to sell to someone who would be willing to keep the tenant. And again, one of the greatest segments ever, folks, that you're going to learn at this course when are we? This coming weekend, holy mackerel.
Coming weekend,
is how Andrea parses a sale price and gets it from list net, which again, maybe that's debatable today, but definitely from a sale price on MLS to a net number, what it means into a seller's pocket. And if you have those tools in your tool belt to be able to talk to a landlord who doesn't really want to sell to the open market because they'd like to help their tenants stay, you can actually create some equity to the market by buying it at what would be net to the seller, and maybe a convenience factor. And if you add AFS in there and that they don't have a payout penalty, it's amazing that you can create some spread and maybe even have one of those no money down deals. Got cash flows. Tired landlords. Place to look.
Tired landlords. Yeah, compassionate tired landlords who have just been hoping and hoping that the market would come back. It's sort of like the stock market. You know, you bought a stock at 10, it went to 5, and you held on because you don't want the pain of losing. But as it comes back to 10, the minute it gets to 10, you sell and miss, the rise to 20. So, I mean, that's what happens when people have lost money. When they think they can get their money out of it, or most of their money out of it, they're ready to sell. And you tack on those other factors that Neil talked about, you can find deals. So, some good coaching in there. It's a good thing to do to belong to other groups, and landlord groups are good groups to belong to. Most of us are landlords, so there's good discussion around what we all do. Plus, there are the folks in there that that Neil talked about. So another source of deals. If you're wondering about marketing, essentially, and how to find deals, there's another good bit of coaching. All right, so that was kind of the go around of things that I wanted to talk about generally. So anybody listening, this is the chance to pop your questions up in the chat and get onto it. Who's got another observation or something they're just dying to get off their chest that you can tell us all about? Because if you're dying to get it off your chest, I want to hear all you experts.
I
Wayne's,
think I can start if you like.
You go ahead, Andrea.
Yeah, so I'm definitely seeing a lot more interest in rent to own because I think people are getting a little bit concerned that if they don't get into home ownership now, that they may never get into home ownership. So that's something that I've certainly seen a little bit more of. The other interesting thing that I've seen more of is people moving to Alberta so that they can get into a home. So I toured somebody around from Ontario last week, and he said it's the only way he can ever afford to buy a house is to literally move provinces.
Yeah.
So I think you're going to see a lot more of that. People cashing in on the high side and buying the fancier properties, but also people who are first-time home buyers also, if they can either do a job transfer or work remotely, to come to Alberta.
I had a client who was moving from Toronto. A younger woman, but sold her house in Toronto, paid about $600 cash for a property in Edmonton. Said to me while she was working on her paperwork, I'm probably going to buy an investment property. 2 days after closing, she called me up and had found an investment property, and she was going to pay cash for that. So we talked a little bit about leverage. But I've seen quite a bit of that. Folks from Ontario coming, and they might be getting mortgages, but lots of them have lots of money to put in because they've sold their very expensive Toronto properties. And so rent to own, as Andrea says, when prices are going up and rates are going up, and I think I saw a little note the other day on social media that, what was the number? 63% of millennials have just given up on the notion of whether they'll ever be able to buy a home. 63% of a pretty big group. And lots of other folks have given up as well. So if you are marketing, if you've picked a strategy to work on, rent to own might be one to focus a bit more attention on now, to get those people who want to be homeowners. They want to be homeowners, but something's stopping them right now. So anybody who's interested in the rent to own strategy, which we go into in great detail at our Rapid Cash event, I think probably between this group that we have with us today, I'm guessing that there's probably 200 rent to owns in this fine group of 6 people that we've got. So these are people with experience who'll be able to tell you lots about rent to own. Who else has something that's interesting?
I can add to the rent to own stuff. So make sure that when you are vetting your rent-to-own client, that the mortgage broker gets involved to see what red flags are out there, why can't they buy their house today? If it's credit, you can fix it. If it's down payment, you should be able to save it up. If it's income, you can't predict you're going to get a better job that's going to allow you to afford the mortgage down the road. So,
Yeah.
and another issue I find is that the most expensive part of the whole rent-own process is the period when you're paying that additional option money every month. So not only are you paying the rent, which covers the mortgage and all the other costs that you normally pay, now you need another $500 or something every month. So people who may just be able to afford it at the rental rate, that extra $500 kills them. So, and I always ask people, if you couldn't save money renting your place you live in today at $1,500, how can you pay a rent-to-own investor $2,000 and come up with another $500 for the down payment or the option money? So you really gotta vet these and make sure it's going to be a win-win for them, or they're just going to crash and burn down the road.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's a good point, Sean. As we say often and properly at the Rapid Cash program and any of our events, we always play for win-win. And so a mortgage broker who understands rent to own is essential if you're going to run a rent to own business, because you have to run your rent to own tenant buyer by a mortgage broker who will look at whether or not they're going to be able to qualify and get a mortgage, and who will ask those tough questions and who will dig into the financial background. And yeah, that's a really good question. If you weren't saving any money before, why are you going to be able to save it now? And well, some people can do that, and you need to get an answer to that for sure. So that's a good one, Sean. That's a really excellent one.
I got another one get off my chest here. So
yeah, go ahead, Sean.
Interest rates. So interest rates, I get emails sometimes twice a week from lenders. It's going up, it's going up, it's going up. The bond rate is going up it's up to 3% now. So rates are going up constantly, and we have to qualify people on the stress test rate, which is 5.25 or 2% above the contract rate. So if you're going to apply for a fixed rate mortgage at 4%, we have to stress test you at 6, which could put you outside your qualification. If you apply for a variable rate mortgage, which is typically prime minus something, so you'd be under 3% for sure on a variable, then we can use a stress test. So you save 0.75% on that qualification. Put you into a variable in a month or two down the road. If you really got your heart set on a fixed rate, you can switch it into a fixed rate down the road. So it's one way we can get a few more dollars out of the qualification amounts. My clients are taking variables almost exclusively, especially the rental property people, because if you have a variable rate mortgage, the BRRRR is a way easier thing to implement. If you do have to switch lenders for any reason, you got a 3-month penalty or whatever you might have to do, top up your mortgage and a whole bunch of other things. So yeah, don't be scared about variable rate mortgages, because they may be going up here, but in 2 years or 3 years, if this recession I hear talking about kicks in and interest rates drop, your variable rate mortgage will drop with it, but your fixed rate will not. So
yes, yeah, fixed is fixed. Fixed is fixed. And the other thing about fixed mortgages is that, people sign up for the classic 5-year mortgage, and lots of people have to get out of their 5-year mortgage. There's some big percentage. Sean, do you guys, as mortgage brokers, do you have a percentage of a rough idea of how many people who sign up for a 5-year fixed have to break that and pay a penalty?
So the number that gets kicked around quite often is about 2/3 or 65% of people break their mortgage in an average of 3.5 years. So they pay a penalty. So they're paying an interest rate differential, and rates have to really go up a lot before that interest rate differential disappears. People think, oh, geez, the rates are 3.5% now, and I only got, my rate is 2.5. There's no penalty for me. Well, surprise, the banks work off what they call a discount, and I saw an example here the other day where the current interest rate is 1.5% higher than what their mortgage is, and they still had to pay a penalty. So
does the lender discount the current rate, and that's what they work off of? Is that what they do?
When you get a mortgage, there'll be a rate that is relative to their posted rate. They'll say you got a fix for 3%, and they'll say your discount was 2% because our posted rate was 5%. So
okay.
When you go to break your mortgage, they use the closest term rate, which banks are smart. They put their short-term rates lower so that when you take a discount off that short-term rate, maybe it's not 5%, maybe it's 4%. So now you're still stuck with an interest rate differential. So unless you're really confident that you're going to live in this forever house, for at least the next 5 years, think about, whether the fixed rate is what you want to do. And secondly, there is lenders out there who offer you what's called a variable rate mortgage, which in a variable rate mortgage, the payment is still static. It's still fixed. Just what you pay towards interest changes. So, and the other type of mortgage is called an adjustable rate mortgage, where the payment changes. And there's been so much misnaming of variables out there that people think a variable is an adjustable mortgage and your payment's going to change. So you can lock in a payment and have the interest rate change. So it's great for rental properties and stuff like that. So make sure you ask your mortgage broker the difference between adjustable and variable rate mortgages. If they can't tell you, maybe you want to call somebody else. So.
Good one, Sean. Good one. That's really topical and interesting information. I have had clients cry in my office as I give them the payout statement from the bank that's $12, $13, $15, $18,000 worth of payout penalty that they had no idea that they were going to have to pay, and they had all that money allocated and every penny accounted for. And they beg and they plead and they go see their bank, and it's discretionary. The bank doesn't have to charge you that, but they end up paying because, as Sean said, banks are smart. They know what they're doing around money. That's their job. And yeah, very sad in lots of these cases. So, all right.
Hey, Barry.
Yes.
I did have a question come in earlier this week personally. Someone was asking about Rapid Cash, if you don't mind.
No, you go ahead.
They were asking, I'm paraphrasing, but the individual was getting started in real estate. They've been struggling with trying to find joint venture partners, people taking them seriously. And they were wondering if any of the strategies being taught at Rapid Cash would be like a low money down, no money down type of thing, where they can get properties without having to have any money. I guess what they're trying to do is, how do I buy properties without any money? Was pretty much the question.
Yeah.
And did you want to touch on that, or because I know a lot of people, they don't understand all the strategies. There's a whole lot of talk about AFS, RTO assignments and.
Okay, well, you know what?
Answer part of that first, if you don't mind, Barry.
Yeah, you go ahead, Andrea.
Sure. A lot of my low money, no money downs, if I was taking over for the balance of what they owed and was not paying them, any money up front until I got possession, so maybe $1,000 moving money. Oftentimes on my contract, I had zero for deposit until possession date. Never had an issue.
So, what are you saying, Andrea? There are no money deals, no money down deals. Is that what you're trying to tell us here?
That's what I'm saying.
Do we want to do a show of hands of how many people have bought properties for zero money down? Yeah.
Yes, and you know, folks, just because it's no money down doesn't mean it's a good deal. It still has to work, still has to cash flow, still got to do your diligence. But well, you know, I'm not going to say, Neil, you've been to our course a few times. Speaking of course, look at the binders here. These are the new binders. There it is. 3 of them. These are all different. These aren't like 3 copies of the same. These are the 3 different binders you get. So Neil, no money down. Is that, I mean, is that a fair thing to say about some of the things you can learn at the Rapid Cash event?
100% a fair thing to say. Agreement for sale is a term that we banter around like it's the word Kleenex. It's just a common term. A lot of real estate investors who are buy and hold or who haven't been in the creative arena certainly go, what's AFS? How does that work? And certainly the amount of time that gets spent this weekend that will get spent discussing it can certainly be an eye-opener. And the easiest example, I think Wayne, for the longest time, was specifically targeting neighborhoods where people, if they take the average person who goes into a neighborhood with 5% down, by the time that even in this day and age, say their property has increased in value, they still have a tough time with their 5% down. By the time you add back a CMHC fee to that or an insurance fee, they'll be at 98 point something percent. Sean can tell me the exact percentage financed on that property. Then there's this payout penalty because most people take the 5-year fixed that they would have to pay if they wanted to move within 1 year or 2 years of buying that new house. And then they'd have realtor commissions. So they are underwater in the old days. They might be at best break even these days. So that's where the ability to buy a house for nothing down comes into play. And we've done it. And like by the show of hands, we're not the only ones in this room.
No.
98.8% financed.
There you go.
98.8. It doesn't take much, much of a blip in the marketplace. But even if it doesn't, yeah, between a penalty and realtor's commission, if you're that much financed, it's very difficult to sell a house, and people need to get out. There's lots of reasons people have to leave their home, and that's a place where we can help, where we can go in and take a look and see whether or not what's on offer value-wise fits with what we can do. And often sellers are so grateful that somebody is going to come along and solve the problem after their realtor has said they can't help them. Their lender has explained, sorry, can't do anything about the payout penalties, and they're stuck. And so the agreement for sale strategy is a wonderful strategy to help people in that circumstance. And there's been many a deal done for sellers who are exactly in that position.
And
Dina,
there are sellers in that position today, Barry, because if you have a realtor on your team who is sending you searches, you can search by keywords, or not keywords, but more listing type. So if it's judicial sale or forced sale type stuff, there's a way to filter that and get them sent to you on a regular basis. And even in this uptick in the market, there are still people who, unfortunately, in the economy have gotten so far behind that their houses are getting listed that way. So it's not to say that this rising tide has floated 100% of the boats.
No, certainly not. There's a question here. Are those deals still largely prevalent in this seller's market? Yeah, there it is. Are those deals
like agreement for sale or foreclosure type deals? I'm still getting, I would say on average, a couple of emails a week just in Airdrie alone on judicial sale listings.
Me too.
Yeah, Dean as well.
It's actually slowed down a little bit in Red Deer. I was chatting with an appraiser today, and he said it's finally slowed down in Red Deer. So I guess our economy here is doing okay.
Oh, that's good. That's good. And you wonder where some of these deals come from. I was reading a note today that what's happening with the energy oil and gas energy, the business in Alberta. And it was a conversation about the federal government promising to help displaced workers. And so the Auditor General of Canada looked at government programs and said that despite all the talk starting in 2016, there's been very little done to help set up programs for workers who have already been displaced or who might be displaced. And the person from the Auditor General's department doing the interview said, and we just have to look at what happened in Alberta when the quicker switch to natural gas from coal happened. It's supposed to happen in 2030. It's done now or close to being done. And I think it said it displaced 2,900 workers. These are 2,900 well-paid workers who own houses, committed to mortgages, and they're out of a job, and none of that government help arrives. So if you wonder why in a busier marketplace things happen to people, that's just one reason why there are still deals out there. So there are always deals in every marketplace. Okay, who else has something here? Anybody else waving their hand?
Barry, I'll talk. I'll give you an example. Just if we're talking about what's available in this market right now.
Yeah.
So far, my home run for the year. You never know, there could be another one. But so last month, I got a call from a lady that wanted to sell. Her and her boyfriend, common law, whatever you want to call him, were separating, and they had this house together. And so we talked a little bit about the house. They've got 2 great big dogs, so trim's all beat up. It's not in great condition, but it's still a single family house. And so we spoke about pricing, and I'm always very transparent with full cash deals, et cetera. It's generally wholesale pricing. And so she said, well, what are you thinking? I said, well, what if I paid you your city assessment? She's like, oh, I don't know. I guess I'd have to think about it and talk to, my significant other. Great, no problem. No, you've got my number. There's zero pressure from my end. And she ended up calling back and she said, yep, we're interested. We'll go to the next step with you. So I went over, I saw the place. All the bones are great, single family house. And so they said, oh, would you negotiate a little bit? I said, the city knows what they're doing when they're assessing property, and they said, oh, well, we were kind of hoping that we could get what we paid for it. I'm like, okay, well, are we close? I had offered $315. They said, yeah, we want $327. Okay, $327 it is. So I took possession of that house today. I'll tell you right now what the comps are when I sell it. It'll be done by the end of the month because it's all it is flooring, trim, baseboards, paints, carpet. One was listed 2 weeks ago at what I thought was too high at $478,000, and it sold for $490. And here's the kicker. I'm not going to say how much rentals are going to cost me unless you're at the cash flow program this weekend. I'll tell you. It's not 6 figures, but I'll tell you if you're at the weekend.
Good one, Dean. Good one. That is so good. And that is just an example of what happens, folks. It's what happens. This is not the first deal of this magnitude and sweetness that has come down the pike. So good for you, Dean. That's excellent. I'd love to hear that story. Wow.
2 glasses of bubbles.
2 glasses of bubbles, Donna says. Sold. All right. Well, any questions for us here?
Really quiet with the questions today.
It's because we're just churning out the fabulous answers.
Wow.
Well, this has been so good. I mean, I love talking to you guys. I love hearing that what we all know and do and teach and are interested in is alive and well. It isn't, it's not a one-trick pony that only works at one time in one market. It works in good times. It works in bad times. You shift and shuffle, and there's always a strategy that works. There's always a seller that needs some help. There's always a seller who doesn't want to sell on MLS. There's always somebody that we can be creative about and, help them and help ourselves at the same time, turn it into a win-win. You heard Dean say, when he was talking to the lady on this example he just gave us, it's just an easy conversation. You have to go in there knowing what you want, but it's not a pressure thing. We learn how to help people, and we don't force them into doing anything. We try and lead them to a spot that works for them and works for us. And boy, I'll tell you, Dean is hitting that one out of the park. I'm sure his rentals will cost a lot more than he thinks. Probably not as good as a deal as he's thinking. Maybe come on the weekend and you'll find out. It'll be great. All right.
I'll jump in, Barry, if you want, with a little bit of an example.
Yeah.
One of the things, folks, one of the benefits is what I'll say of coming to these events live versus some of the stuff that happens online is that the off topic, so to speak, off script. Ask Donna, because she's in the background, whether we always stay on schedule and on time. And of course, the answer is yes. Right, Barry? No, we don't.
I always hit my timing marks.
Yes, we finish more or less on time, but we go into these sidetracks. So here's an example of a sidetrack that might come up because someone has a topic. And a little tidbit for you folks. On the house that we just took possession of last Friday, we negotiated that deal in February, and they wanted a quick possession because it was someone downsizing. They were moving to a care home, that sort of thing. They'd been in the house for 45 years, etc., and they were ready to sell. And they wanted their funds, and they wanted to be done. So we left the possession date up to them with our offer so that it wouldn't end up. I lost a deal in January because we miscommunicated, and rather than offer the earlier date and then push it out, we offered the later date. We lost the deal, and not on money. We actually had paid more, but they took the sooner close. So on this one, we left it open for the seller to tell us when they wanted possession, won the deal, and once it was signed, I went and I said to our realtor, what if you went back to them and said, hey, if you push possession out from the agreed date by another 6 weeks, we'll pay you more. And we made it worth their while, because if you think about the average homeowner who's been in a house for a long time, or even someone who has a mortgage, quite frankly, it's pretty easy to figure out what their cost is to carry it an extra month. And again, we talk about private lending opportunities in this course because a lot of times on fix and flip or BRRRR, that's where you start, is with hard money lending. So we know that if we're borrowing, we're paying a higher rate. And in the meantime, the house is going to sit anyways with the level of work that we're doing, and we need a development permit. So it's not like if I had gotten the keys in early March, I could have started to work on it other than do some light demo. So we will use that time to get our paperwork in order at City Hall to get a development permit. We'll push out possession to last Friday. We paid them, I want to say it was $2,500 more. And when we put it on paper, our cost, by the time I factored in utilities, taxes, interest, et cetera, was going to be more in the order of $4 or $5 grand. So we actually made money by paying them more. And I just got a little battery warning, but I think I got to the end of my story. I'm going to run and plug in here.
And that, folks, is creative. That's what.
So little things like this come out at the course is what I'll say.
Yeah, that is creative. I love that story. Let them set the date, and as soon as you do something like that, that builds trust. And we're very keen and big on how important trust is in creative real estate. Once sellers trust you, then you can do and get changes and amendments and accommodations that you would not believe, folks. You would not believe. That's such a great story. I love that. And there's a ton of them that we'll be visiting this weekend at the Rapid Cash event. All right. Anybody have a closing comment? Or have we run out our string here?
I have a new program available for buyers, guaranteed funding on a particular property. So Yeah, so
Yeah.
if we have an address, we can guarantee X amount of dollars will be lent on that property. So you don't have, if you're looking to do an unconditional offer and you know you're going to get financing, but you want to put unconditional on it up front, I got guaranteed funding program. It's just coming on stream
Wow.
here this coming week. So,
What a useful tool in a hot market.
mhm.
Wow.
So often you can, you know you're going to qualify for a property probably, but you never know about the actual address, right? So
Yeah.
you may know you're good for $300,000 or $400,000, but if a lender doesn't like the property for any particular reason, you could possibly get turned down. Makes people nervous, right?
Oh,
So
that's
this way there's an in-house appraisal done, and they'll give you the number. So you can go at it, and if you have to offer over list and stuff like that, well, you know how much money you may have to come out of pocket over and above. So
Yeah. Useful. Wow, that's a good one.
yeah. So
That is a good one. Anybody else?
There's a question.
Oh.
Details.
Question. Facebook user, could you give us the details of the Rapid Cash program, Barry? Well, I could do that, but that's why
Just dates and times. Just real
Donna.
quick. Just real quick.
it's Donna says, Barry, they don't want the whole course. They just want to know when it is. It's this
I'd
coming
say
weekend.
much nicer
It's
than that.
Friday, it's Saturday and Sunday, May 7th and 8th in Calgary. 7th and 8th in Calgary. 2 full days. We feed you, we educate you, we have a lot of fun with you. And Donna can give you other details if you want them.
And I don't know if we missed it while I was switching and all that stuff, Barry, but the also part about we stay after the course finishes until the very last question has been answered.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And
that's right.
we're going to start a pool this time to see how many questions Wayne has at the end of the weekend.
Yes.
That's a good pool because you know for sure he'll have some questions. The only question is how many questions.
I'm saying double digits.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't have anything to say today. I'm saving it for Saturday or Sunday.
Sunday.
All right. Yes, we do stay. We finish the sort of planned part of the presentation, and then we do not leave the room until everyone says "Uncle." All right.
And one other thing too is if you haven't mentioned it, all attendees of the program then get into a private Facebook group, the Student Success Group.
Yep.
And if you're in that group, just I think in the last, I'll say a week, but it might be less time, there was a previous graduate who posted a potential opportunity that they were unable to act on, but they said that deal might make sense for someone else. So that's also a good venue to have deals vetted, but also sometimes get past a lead that is either out of market or just not in the right timing. And I think in that particular case, Gary wasn't even looking for an assignment fee. He was just trying to help someone, create a win-win.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Students do help each other by, if something shows up in your area that you can't handle, somebody else would like it, you pass them on, you help out. That's a good point, Neil. Appreciate that. That's good. All right, everyone. Well, thank you very much for showing up. Boy, I really enjoyed this. I learned a ton of stuff. Barry, you must know everything. You've been at it for so long. BS. I learn stuff all the time, just like you do. So thanks all, and we'll see you all. We'll see you all on the weekend. So good night, everybody.